very long time since we last seen Dainsleif, specifically since 2.6, several updates ago. Do you remember what happened? Because I certainly don't. Hi, I'm Evening Music, and here's a brief summary of what happened with Dainsleif. 1.3 Prelude, Bowkeeper, Dainsleif. Meet Dainsleif after being tipped off by Catherine in Mondstadt about a stranger appearing, and we think it might be our sibling. Psych! Surprise! It's actually Dainsleif. He asks us 3 questions and for 500 mora to commission him. 1. The crisis, Storm Terror, was resolved by us and Venti. Who, in your view, was the key to ending that crisis? And we know now that he knows who Venti is. 2. Rex Lapis. He doesn't mention Zhongli's name. Gave up the Gnosis and asks who will defend Lie once he's gone. 3. Who holds more importance in the eyes of gods, vision bearers or non-vision bearers? After giving him the money and the answers, he mentions that you're really similar to them, mentioning a previous traveling partner he was with before. We now know in 1.4 is the Abyss Twin. We go with Dane to find an Abyss Herald, finding abyssal activity in the Temple of the Falcon, Boreas' domain in Wolvendom, and in Storm Terror's lair. The Traveler gets a familiar feeling, like someone's watching over them. We find Ruinguard tracks and a trampled dandelion. We get a vision of our sibling after touching the dandelion while talking to Dainsleif of the destruction of Khaenri'ah and how we got there. 1.4 We will be reunited. During our adventures in Lia, we meet Ganyu and Lan talking about 2 well-known treasure hoarders, Big Sis of the South and Raptor of the North, trying to dig through Abyss Order artifacts. We investigate for them, and when we go to the domain, we find a super dead Raptor of the North who looks like they're praying to an upside-down statue of the Seven from Mondstadt, holding some abyssal power in its hands. Suddenly, an Abyss Hero 100% tries to murk us, and the Traveler gets a feeling that they might know who they are. Then we find Dainsleif outside trying to find the Abyss Herald, because of course. While investigating with Dane, we discover the Loom of Fate Abyss Order plot. Phase 1. Controlling Osile and using pieces of the Ruinguards to turn Osile into a giant mecha, transforming Osile's body. The Abyss Order wants to find the very first Ruinguard's eye, place the eye in the hands of the defiled statue, and then attach Osile's limbs to the statue to create a mechanized god. While investigating, we find Barbara, who mentions a time period in Mondstadt as the Tyrant's Final Fury, when balls of fire would rain upon the sky whenever anyone approached Old Mondstadt, aka Storm Terror's lair. Citizens believed that it was due to a curse via the God of Storms and that the phenomenon slowly stopped after a year. Barbara hints that maybe something else could have caused the disaster. We also find that the Abyss tried to corrupt Boreas, the Servant of the North, and the Knights of Favonius were also investigating the situation. After saving Boreas, we find out that he had previously fought the first Ruinguard and it ended up in Old Mondstadt, aka Storm Terror's lair. This also could tie into the rain fireball / missiles idea, which suggests that this was the cause of Tyrant's Final Fury. Dainsleif doesn't come with us while we talk to Boreas because Boreas was an ancient god, yet he willingly became a servant of the Seven, which he doesn't agree with. He gives us the advice, always be on your guard when around gods. You shouldn't place too much trust in them, but at the same time, don't go too far in the opposite direction, lest I repeat the failings of my forebearers. He tells us the destruction of Khaenri'ah by the gods is the reason that the Abyss Order now seeks to destroy the nations watched over by the Seven. We also have a talk with Paimon where the Traveler says that he understands why Dane would think this way. The first field tiller is located at the top of Storm Terror's lair, and Dane removes the eye because it's not powered by the elements, so he does some weird Dainsleif magic to remove the eye, and he keeps it to prevent anyone else from accessing it. We go back with Dane to destroy the defiled statue and encounter the Abyss Herald. The Abyss Herald mentions that Dane reeks of a corruption familiar to me. Then we are the same. The Abyss Twin eventually appears to prevent Dane from unaliving the Abyss Herald and says to the Traveler that they'll wait until they finish their journey to see the true nature of this world. After this life-changing scenario, we recap with Paimon, clarifying that 1. The Abyss Twin is a leader of the Abyss Order, although she may not be the highest-ranking leader in the organization. 2. The Abyss Twin wants to engulf the thrones and go to war with Destiny, meaning that she opposes the 7 nations of Teyvat. 3. The monsters we see around Teyvat are people of Khaenri'ah but morphed into monsters. 4. Dane is from Khaenri'ah and was the Twilight Sword, a royal guard from the final dynasty of Khaenri'ah who was unable to prevent the destruction over 500 years. He was cursed with immortality and watched as Khaenri'ahns eventually became monsters of the Abyss. Although the people of Khaenri'ah are now monsters, he opposes the Abyss Order. There is some additional information that we do find during this quest. 1. Traveler recounts the tale of seeing the destruction of Khaenri'ah to Dainsleif. We find out that the Abyss sibling was the one to wake first, although we don't know for how long, during the destruction of Khaenri'ah, and then they fought the unknown god together with the other sibling. Dane says that this is from 500 years ago, which gives us our official time placement of when we woke up and when the cataclysm happened. 2. Dane mentions time is just waiting for those seeds to sprout in regards to him meeting the Traveler at some point, which means that he either views the world possibly through fate, or that time could be controlled, which is an ongoing theory after the events of 2.6. 2.6. Requiem of Echoing Deaths. We're in the middle of a commission to investigate the chasm in Leah, which recently reopened after a long period of being shut down. There are reports of many hilichurls wandering into the chasm, but being unhostile to those around him. During the investigation, we find an underground city floating in the air upside down. Suddenly, Dainsleif appears, of course, who was investigating another Abyss Herald sighting. He mentions that he's never been to the chasm before, and that the Abyss portals are gateways of networks throughout Teyvat, and that the Abyss controls where the portals will be led. Dane confirms that yes, he was in fact the Twilight Sword, and yes, he was travel partners with the Abyss Twin, but before we can question him any further, he says that the portals he was traveling led to the chasm, which means that the Abyss Order has their sights on this location, and that they could be watching them. Dane explains after some investigation that the chasm lessens the effect of the curse that was placed upon Khaenri'ahns, but that he doesn't know why. Only that the Abyss does not have the technologies to achieve this. The curse is one of immortality and transformation, which is why the hilichurls wear masks so they can't see what they look like now in their reflections. When they know that they're about to die, they come to the chasm to lessen the effects of this erosion and to find some peace. We're attacked by the Black Serpent Knights, which Dane says were people of his royal guard. There's one knight who watches from above, but it doesn't attack us, and eventually disappears. Dane asks himself why the knight is different from all the others, and why this one guard retained self-awareness without it. We approach the city surrounded by some weird purple mist belonging to old Khaenri'ah technology with abyssal power, which Dane just Deus Ex Machinas out of existence. He mentions that the ruined architecture is from an older civilization that resembles Khaenri'ah architecture, but is upside down. We find Black Serpent Knights protecting hilichurls trying to rest in their remaining days. The mysterious teal-colored knight reappears, and Dane recognizes him as Halfdan, an elite of the Royal Guard, who orders the attacking knights to retreat. Dane explains to the Traveler that these knights are living out the last order that Dane gave to Halfdan, to protect the people of Khaenri'ah at all costs. The knights are also repeating the word run in Khaenri'ah to the hill. After some investigation, we find an upside-down fountain in the center of the ruins that appear to be temporarily weakening the curse, but would not be able to cure the curse according to Dane. Dane explains that the curse permeates the body, and trying to remove the curse would be like removing the entire part of yourself, and most likely would end up costing your life. Under the fountain is some type of device that Dane theorizes is placed by the Abyss Order. We'll get back to that later. Halfdan appears and all the surrounding doors are unlocked. He motions to follow him. We find hilichurls resting upon their final days, and among the items are a pair of flowers, which Dane explains are the national flower of Khaenri'ah, the Intivat, a flower that once bloomed all across Khaenri'ah and lasted only 2 weeks before wilting, but taking it out of Khaenri'ah causes it to harden and stop growing. Once it returns to Khaenri'ah soil, the petals would soften and turn into dust. Touching the Intivat gives us a vision of our twins speaking about a new plan of the Abyss to revive the homeland by removing the curse placed upon them, which is implied to return the people of Khaenri'ah to this natural cycle of life and death. Dane is 100% against this idea, citing that Khaenri'ahns are already gone and merely just monsters. If you cling to false hope and allow yourself to become too emotionally invested, the only way is down. You'll end up just like them, mired in hypocrisy. We choose to believe Dane, citing that we should not be the ones who allowed to make this decision on behalf of the Khaenri'ahns. He's happy that we've developed our own worldviews, citing the 1.3 quest from long ago and his 3 questions. We go back to where the fountain is to find Abyss Herald using the device below it to amplify the power of the fountain. Halfdan rushes in and covers his whole body on the amplification device to disrupt the connection. We shut down the device to put an end to the Hilichurl's suffering, but Halfdan has already perished. Before we leave, we see the spirit of Halfdan, who muses on his failings, but Dain is quick to correct him, saying that he has been doing his duty. Halfdan says, "Khaenri'ah didn't fall, did it, since you're still here?" To which Dain says, "Correct, so there's no need to revive the homeland," and Halfdan's soul is released. By the end of the quest, Dain coughs and says he needs to recover from his experience before departing with, "When we next meet, I hope you know what side you're on." And that's all the information that we have for now. I guess we'll have to find more in 3.5, whether or not Dainsleif will or will not tell us any further information. Most likely it's the latter.